With no other option, the human had to apply his own liquid to neutralize the venom. The crimson sun of Nexus Prime cast long shadows across the crystalline desert as Nyxara Vale collapsed against a jutting formation of blue-tinted rocks. Her alabaster hair clung to her face, matted with sweat, and her normally pristine green skin had taken on an ashen hue. The wound on her forearm pulsed with sickly purple veins spreading outward like a twisted roadmap. "Damn it! Hold still!" Commander Jack Harrison growled, his strong hand steady as he examined the injury. The reconnaissance mission had gone sideways the moment they encountered that native creature, some kind of crystalline serpent that had seemingly materialized from the very rocks themselves. Nyxara's golden eyes flickered with pain as she tried to focus on her human partner. "The venom, it's spreading faster than standard toxins. My system can't neutralize it." Her voice, usually melodious and controlled, came out as a ragged whisper. Jack's mind raced through their options. The medical kit was destroyed in their hasty retreat, the shuttle was hours away, and Nyxara's condition was deteriorating rapidly. He remembered an obscure paragraph from the xenobiology archives about human biological compounds and their surprising effectiveness against certain alien toxins. "There might be a way," he said slowly, already dreading her reaction. "But you're not going to like it." Nyxara's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What are you thinking, Harrison?" He explained quickly, clinically, trying to keep his voice professional despite the intimate nature of the solution. Her expression shifted from confusion to horror to outrage. "You wouldn't dare!" she hissed, but another wave of pain made her gasp and curl inward. Jack set his jaw. "Look, I know it's not ideal, but it's either this or watch that venom reach your heart. Your choice, but make it fast." Nyxara's golden eyes blazed with fury, but the purple lines were now halfway to her shoulder. "I swear, Harrison, if you ever breathe a word of this to anyone—" Yeah, you'll feed me to a space whale." He was already unfastening his suit. "Just hold still and try not to punch me. This is awkward enough already." The next few moments passed in tense silence, broken only by the sound of liquid hitting skin and Nyxara's sharp intake of breath. Where the fluid touched her wound, the purple lines began to recede, the angry flesh returning to its natural green hue. "I can't believe that actually worked," Nyxara muttered, staring at her arm in a mixture of relief and mortification. Jack fastened his suit back up, trying to maintain some dignity. The archives are never wrong. Well, rarely wrong. "How's it feeling?" "Better," she admitted reluctantly. "The burning is subsiding." She looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "I suppose I owe you my life. Let's just call it even for that time you saved me from the magnetic storm on Helios 4. He helped her to her feet, noticing how she didn't immediately pull away from his touch. "This doesn't change anything," she said, but there was a new note in her voice that hadn't been there before. "Of course not," Jack agreed, fighting back a smile as he caught her stealing glances at him while they began their trek back to the extraction point. The crimson sun continued its slow descent, casting their shadows long across the crystalline desert, two figures walking closer together than strictly necessary for professional partners. The journey back to their research outpost took longer than usual. Every few minutes, Nyxara would pause, her golden eyes fixed on Jack with an intensity that made his skin tingle. The setting sun painted the crystalline desert in deep crimson hues, matching the heat rising in her cheeks whenever their eyes met. "The venom's completely gone," she said softly, running her fingers over the spot where the wound had been. Only a faint greenish mark remained. "Your solution was remarkably effective." Jack cleared his throat, trying to maintain his professional demeanor. "The archives mentioned something about human biochemistry being uniquely adaptable. We evolved on Earth dealing with countless toxins and venoms. Is that why humans are so—" Nyxara paused, searching for the right word. "Fascinating?" The way she said fascinating made Jack's pulse quicken. "We're just survivors. Nothing special about that." "I disagree." She stepped closer, her alabaster hair catching the dying sunlight. "My people have studied hundreds of species, but humans, you're different. You're not just survivors. You're innovators, adapters. Even your bodily fluids have healing properties. Jack felt his face flush. Maybe we should focus on getting back to, do you know what's truly remarkable? Nyxara interrupted, her voice dropping to a whisper. The chemical compatibility between our species. It shouldn't be possible, and yet, she traced the healed area on her arm. Here's the proof. The research outpost appeared on the horizon, a sleek structure of metal and glass rising from the crystalline landscape. As they approached, Nyxara's hand brushed against Jack's, sending an electric current through his body. We should run some tests, she suggested, her professional tone betrayed by the heat in her gaze. For scientific purposes, of course. To understand this, compatibility better. Inside the outpost, the environmental controls hummed softly, but the air felt charged with something more than just electricity. Jack found himself in the small medical bay, watching as Nyxara analyzed samples under a molecular scanner. The results are extraordinary, she breathed, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. Your biochemistry, it's not just compatible with mine, it's complementary. The molecular structures align perfectly, creating a harmonious blend that… She stopped, realizing Jack was staring at her. You're beautiful when you're being scientific, he said before he could stop himself. Nyxara's green skin flushed a deeper shade. Commander Harrison, are you flirting with me? Would that be inappropriate? By my people's standards? We believe in following chemical truths. When two beings share such profound biological compatibility… She moved closer, her breath warm against his neck. It would be foolish to ignore it. The medical bay's soft lighting cast intimate shadows as Nyxara's fingers traced the contours of Jack's face. Your skin is so warm, she murmured. Everything about you radiates heat. Is that common for humans? Our core temperature runs hot, Jack managed, his voice rough. Helps with our adaptability. I've noticed. Her golden eyes locked with his. You know, in my culture, when someone saves your life, it creates a bond. A deep, primal connection that… Jack silenced her with a kiss, gentle at first, then deeper as she responded with equal passion. Her skin was cool against his, a delicious contrast that made every touch more intense. The night cycle found them tangled together in Nyxara's quarters, discovering just how compatible their species truly were. Their union was a dance of contrasts, hot and cool, smooth and rough, human and alien, yet somehow perfectly harmonious. Later, as artificial starlight filtered through the dome above them, Nyxara traced patterns on Jack's chest. I never understood why humans were considered so special in the galaxy, she mused. Now I do. You're not just adaptable in survival situations, you're adaptable in everything. Is that a compliment? It's a scientific observation. But her smile was anything but clinical. The Galactic Science Academy's grand amphitheater buzzed with anticipation. Hundreds of xenobiologists from across known space had gathered for what was being called the discovery of the decade. In the preparation room, Nyxara adjusted her formal robes, while Jack paced nervously in his dress uniform. Remind me again why we agreed to this, he muttered, tugging at his collar. Because, Nyxara replied, catching his hand and stilling his nervous movement, Dr. Renault's research team could revolutionize emergency medical treatments across the galaxy. Our experience could save countless lives. Jack's face reddened. You mean I have to tell a room full of scientists about how I applied an unconventional solution to a life-threatening situation? She smirked, her golden eyes dancing with mischief. Consider it your contribution to interspecies relations. Speaking of relations, he pulled her close, his warmth seeping into her cooler skin. Last night was… A knock at the door interrupted them. Commander Harrison, Dr. Vielle, you're on in 5 minutes, called Dr. Renault's assistant. The amphitheater fell silent as they took their places at the podium. Nyxara's white hair gleamed under the lights, and Jack couldn't help but admire how her green skin seemed to glow with excitement. Dr. Renault, a distinguished human scientist with silver hair, introduced them. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all designations, we are here to discuss a groundbreaking discovery in xenobiology. Commander Harrison and Dr. Vale's encounter has revealed unprecedented compatibility between human and Lysarian biochemistry. Nyxara stepped forward, activating the holographic display. The incident occurred during a standard reconnaissance mission on Nexus Prime. She began, her voice steady, despite the intimate nature of their story. We encountered a crystalline serpent whose venom proved particularly aggressive. The display showed molecular models of the venom structure. Jack watched as Nixara explained the technical details with professional detachment, though he noticed her fingers trembling slightly when she reached the crucial moment. Traditional antidotes were unavailable, she continued. Commander Harrison recalled an obscure reference in ancient medical texts about human biological compounds and their neutralizing properties. A ripple of murmurs spread through the audience. Jack stepped forward, taking over the narrative. The situation was critical. The venom was spreading rapidly, and we had no other options. I made the decision to test the theory. Perhaps, interrupted an elderly Lacerian scientist, you could explain exactly how this application occurred. Jack felt his face flush, but maintained his composure. I applied the human biological fluid directly to the wound site. The effect was immediate and conclusive. The holographic display showed the molecular interaction between human compounds and the venom. The audience leaned forward, fascinated by the perfect chemical dance playing out before them. What's truly remarkable, Nixara added, her voice taking on a hint of passion that made Jack's heart race, is the broader implications. Human biological materials show an unprecedented ability to adapt and bond with Lycerian physiology. Our subsequent research has revealed countless potential applications. Their eyes met briefly, both remembering their own private research sessions. Questions flew from the audience. How soon after application did you notice the effects? Were there any adverse reactions? Have you conducted further compatibility tests? Jack handled the technical queries while Nixara addressed the biochemical aspects. Their synchronized responses spoke of their deepening connection, both professional and personal. During a brief break, they escaped to a quiet balcony overlooking the Academy's botanical gardens. You're handling this remarkably well, Narasha. You heard, yes? Maman, Nixara observed, pressing against his side. Well, when you present it as a scientific breakthrough, rather than how I actually saved your life, he grinned, though I noticed you glossed over your initial reaction. You mean when I threatened to feed you to a space whale? She laughed, the sound like crystal chimes. I prefer to focus on how that moment led to everything else. Their moment of privacy was interrupted by Dr. Renault. There you are. The Lycerian Medical Council wants to discuss establishing a research program. They're particularly interested in exploring the full range of human Lycerian biological compatibility. Nixara's eyes widened. You mean... Yes, Dr. Renault smiled. They want to fund an extensive study. You'll both need to participate in numerous trials, tests, and demonstrations. Jack coughed. Demonstrations? Of course. We need to document every aspect of this remarkable compatibility. Think of the possibilities. Emergency medical treatments, biological supplements, perhaps even... We'll do it, Nixara interrupted, squeezing Jack's hand. For science, of course. For science, Jack echoed, trying not to smile too broadly. The Lycerian Medical Council's research facility gleamed like a pearl in the morning light of twin suns. Inside the pristine laboratory, Nixara studied the latest test results with growing amazement, while Jack lounged on a nearby examination bed, his uniform jacket casually draped over a chair. This is extraordinary, she breathed, her green fingers dancing across the holographic display. The molecular bonding between our species goes far beyond simple chemical compatibility. Care to translate that into non-scientist speak? Jack asked, admiring how her white hair caught the laboratory's soft illumination. Remember how your biological fluid neutralized the serpent's venom? She turned to face him, golden eyes bright with excitement. That was just the beginning. Our continued, intimate contact has triggered unprecedented changes in my biochemistry. Jack sat up straighter. Changes? Are you all right? More than all right. She moved closer, taking his hand and placing it against her chest. Feel my heartbeat? Under his palm, her heart thrummed with a new rhythm, stronger and faster than the typical Lycerian pulse. It's almost human, she finished, My body is adapting to match your biochemical patterns. Dr. Renault's team believes it's an evolutionary response to prolonged exposure to human biological compounds. Prolonged exposure? Jack smirked. Is that what we're calling it now? Nixara's skin flushed a deeper shade of green. The scientific terminology helps maintain professional decorum during research presentations. Speaking of research, he pulled her closer, his warmth seeping into her gradually warming skin. Don't we have more data to collect? Commander Harrison, she mock-scolded, are you suggesting we conduct unauthorized experiments? Their playful banter was interrupted by Dr. Renault's entrance. The older scientist barely glanced up from her data pad. Your hormone levels are absolutely fascinating, Doctor. Vial, the way they're synchronizing with human patterns is unprecedented. Commander will need another sample for comparison. Jack coughed awkwardly. Now? The collection room is prepared, Doctor. Renault replied matter-of-factly. Dr. Vale, perhaps you'd like to assist. For scientific accuracy, of course. After they'd completed the day's research requirements, Jack and Nixara retreated to their private quarters in the facility's residential wing. The room combined their environmental preferences, warm enough for human comfort, but with the crystal-infused air Lysarians preferred. I never thought I'd be part of a scientific breakthrough quite like this, Jack mused, watching Nixara record her daily observations. Saving your life that day on Nexus Prime was just instinct. Human instincts, she replied, setting aside her datapad. That's what fascinates us most about your species. You act on impulse, yet those impulses often lead to revolutionary discoveries. Like the fact that human biological compounds can create a permanent bond with Lysarian physiology. Exactly, she curled against him, her body temperature now noticeably warmer than when they had first met. The changes aren't just physical, my emotional responses are intensifying. Lysarians typically maintain strict control over their feelings, but lately, I find myself experiencing things more deeply, more passionately, like humans do. She traced a pattern on his chest. It's both terrifying and exhilarating. Any regrets? He asked softly. About letting you save my life with your unconventional method? She laughed. Only that I resisted at first. Think of all the research time we could have saved. A chime from their communication panel interrupted the moment. Dr. Renault's voice filled the room. Preliminary results from today's test show something unexpected. The biochemical changes in Dr. Vial's system appear to be permanent and potentially transmissible to other Lysarians through prolonged contact. They exchanged startled looks. Transmissible? Nixara repeated. Yes, your altered biochemistry could theoretically affect other members of your species, gradually changing their biological patterns to be more compatible with humans. The implications are significant. After the communication ended, Jack ran a hand through his hair. So not only did my emergency solution save your life, it might have accidentally created a way to fundamentally change your entire species. It appears your biological compounds are more potent than anyone suspected. Nixara's golden eyes sparkled with amusement. Humanity's gift to the galaxy, the ability to quite literally transform other species through intimate contact. Should we be concerned? About revolutionizing interspecies relations through the power of human biological compatibility? She pressed closer, her newly warmed skin almost matching his temperature. I think we should be very proud. After all, it started with you having no other option but to help me in the most primitive way possible. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council chamber buzzed with tension. Representatives from dozens of species filled the tiered seats, their attention fixed on the central platform where Jack and Nixara stood beside Dr. Renault. The chamber's crystalline walls reflected the various bioluminescent patterns of the assembled delegates, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that matched the charged atmosphere. This is unprecedented, declared Admiral Theron, the human military representative. His decorated uniform gleamed under the chamber's lights. The potential military applications of human biological compounds as enhancement agents could revolutionize our defensive capabilities. Enhancement? The Lysarian High Elder's voice crackled with disapproval. You mean contamination. These changes threaten the very essence of our species' purity. Nixara stepped forward, her white hair practically glowing with indignation. With respect, High Elder, the changes I've experienced have only enhanced our natural abilities. My strength, reflexes, and cognitive functions have all improved while maintaining our core biological identity. And what of the reports that these changes can spread to others of your kind? The Arthurian ambassador's crystalline form shimmered with interest. Our species has long sought ways to adapt to warmer climates. Perhaps human biological compatibility could... Absolutely not! The High Elder's interruption echoed through the chamber. We cannot allow this. This primitive solution to alter the course of multiple species evolution. Jack watched as Nixara's golden eyes flashed with emotion, a display that would have been impossible for a pure Lessarian. The changes in her had indeed gone beyond mere physical adaptation. She felt more deeply, loved more passionately, lived more intensely, all because he'd had no choice but to save her life in the most basic way possible. If I may, Dr. Renault interjected, our research suggests that changes are entirely beneficial. Commander Harrison's emergency solution not only saved Dr. Vale's life, but opened the door to evolutionary advantages we're only beginning to understand. The Meridian representative, a being of pure energy, pulsed with curiosity. We've received multiple requests from various species seeking similar compatibility studies with humans. The diplomatic implications are significant. Diplomatic implications? Admiral Theron leaned forward. Think bigger. A corps of enhanced alien soldiers, all improved through controlled exposure to human biological compounds. We are not weapons. Nixara's voice carried the new passion she developed through her changes. This is about evolution, about species coming together naturally, intimately. Precisely the problem, the High Elder cut in. These primitive urges, these human traits corrupting our logical nature. These primitive urges saved my life, Nixara countered. She reached for Jack's hand, their fingers intertwining in a gesture that caused murmurs throughout the chamber. And they've made me stronger, better, more alive than I've ever been. Jack squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth that now matched his own. This isn't about military applications or species purity, he addressed the chamber. What happened between us was natural, necessary, and led to something beautiful. If other species can benefit from similar compatibility, shouldn't that be their choice? The Arthurian ambassador's crystalline form brightened. Perhaps we need a compromise. Regulated research programs, voluntary participation, careful monitoring of results, under military supervision, Admiral Theron added quickly. With traditional safeguards, the High Elder insisted, and full diplomatic oversight, the Meridian representative pulsed. As the debate continued, Jack and Nixara exchanged knowing looks. Their private moment in the crystalline desert, born of desperate necessity, had sparked a galactic revolution. Their nights of passion had led to morning discoveries that could reshape the future of multiple species. Dr. Renault's datapad chimed with incoming messages. We're being flooded with research requests, she whispered. Every major species wants to explore human biological compatibility. They're calling it the humanity effect, the ability to enhance other species through intimate contact, through primitive, basic human biological compounds. Nixara added with a teasing smile. Who would have thought your emergency solution would turn humans into the most sought-after species in the galaxy? Speaking of which, Jack murmured, don't we have some more research to conduct? Commander Harrison, she replied, her voice carrying that new warmth that drove him wild. Are you suggesting we continue our detailed study of human-Lessarian compatibility? For science, of course. Of course, her golden eyes sparkled with promise. After all, we need to document every aspect of these changes for the benefit of all species. The private research facility on Europa Station gleamed like a jewel against the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling storms. Jack and Nixara had chosen this location for its neutrality, away from both military interests and conservative political pressures. The station's unique design incorporated elements from multiple species, creating an environment where all could feel comfortable exploring human compatibility in a natural, respectful setting. Another breach attempt, Nixara announced, her fingers dancing across the security console. Her white hair caught the light from Jupiter's reflection, creating an ethereal glow. Military intelligence trying to access our research data. Jack moved behind her, placing his hands on her shoulders. Her skin, once cool to the touch, now radiated a warmth that matched his own. They just can't accept that some things can't be weaponized. Humans are fascinating that way, she mused, leaning back against him. Your most powerful abilities come from your most basic, primitive instincts. The military wants to replicate what happened between us in a controlled setting. But they don't understand it's not about control, Jack finished. It's about necessity, instinct, and natural attraction. The facility's main laboratory hummed with activity. Their current residents included pairs from 3 different species, all exploring human compatibility through intimate contact. Dr. Renault had helped them establish proper protocols, ensuring everything remained scientific while respecting the personal nature of the research. The Arthurian couple is showing promising results, Nixara reported, pulling up their latest data. Their crystalline structures are adapting to handle warmer temperatures, just as they hoped, and the female's emotional responses are becoming more intense, like yours did. Jack's voice carried a teasing note that made her skin flush a deeper green. I prefer to think of it as evolutionary enhancement, she replied primly, though her golden eyes sparkled with remembered passion. After all, if you hadn't been forced to use your primitive solution that day— Primitive? He spun her chair around to face him. I seem to recall you becoming quite fond of primitive solutions. Their playful moment was interrupted by an urgent alert. The station's security systems had detected multiple approaching vessels, military class, weapons armed. They're really doing this, Jack muttered, scanning the tactical display. They're actually trying to seize the facility. Nixara's fingers flew across the console, activating their emergency protocols. They don't understand. What we have here, what we're studying, it can't be forced or weaponized. It has to happen naturally, like it did with us. When I had no other option, Jack agreed, remembering that desperate moment in the crystalline desert. Pure instinct, pure necessity. Pure humanity, Nixara finished. She stood, pressing against him. That's what makes your species so remarkable. Your solutions may seem primitive, but they're pure, natural, effective. The approaching ships were hailing them now. Admiral Theron's voice filled the command center. Commander Harrison, Dr. Vale, by order of the Joint Military Command, surrender your facility and all research data immediately. Jack and Nixara exchanged looks. They'd prepared for this possibility, had contingency plans in place. But first— Remember our first night together? Nixara asked suddenly, her voice soft. After you saved me with your unconventional method, how could I forget? You were so angry at first, then curious, then I realized that sometimes the most primitive solutions are the most perfect. She activated their emergency beacon, alerting their allies in the diplomatic corps. Just like now, they want to complicate something beautiful and natural with military applications and weapon systems. Not going to happen, Jack stated firmly, pulling her close. What we have here, what we're helping other species discover, it has to remain pure, natural, driven by necessity and attraction, not military objectives. The facility's defensive systems engaged automatically, creating an impenetrable barrier around the station. Their research participants were already being evacuated through secure channels, their data protected by quantum encryption. They'll never understand, Nixara said, watching the military ships maneuver into attack positions, that the power of human compatibility comes from its very simplicity, from having no other option but to rely on the most basic, primitive solutions. And finding out those solutions are actually perfect, Jack added, remembering how his desperate act to save her life had led to something so profound, so revolutionary. The diplomatic corps was responding now, multiple ships appearing to counter the military presence. The facility's defenses held strong, protecting the sanctuary they'd created for natural, human-alien compatibility research. You know what this means? Nixara's golden eyes met his. We'll have to go underground with our research, create multiple smaller facilities hidden from military interference. More intimate settings, Jack suggested with a smile, where species can explore compatibility naturally the way we did. Starting with necessity, she agreed, and ending with love. The Galactic Senate's Grand Chamber glowed with the combined light of 1,000 worlds. Representatives from every known species gathered to witness the historic signing of the Natural Evolution Rights Act, or NERA. Jack stood beside Nixara at the central podium, their presence a testament to how far they'd come since that desperate moment in the crystalline desert. The act ensures that all species have the right to explore human compatibility through natural, consensual means, the Senate president announced. Military exploitation and forced adaptation are hereby prohibited across all territories. Nixara squeezed Jack's hand, her skin now permanently warm to match his temperature. Her golden eyes held a mixture of pride and something deeper, a profound understanding of how their desperate solution had changed not just their lives, but the course of galactic history. "Did you ever imagine," she whispered, "that your primitive emergency solution would lead to this?" Jack smiled, remembering the panic and determination of that moment. "You mean when I had no other option but to use the most basic human biological fluid to save your life?" "No, I was more worried about you feeding me to a space whale." Their quiet exchange was interrupted by Dr. Renaud, who approached with barely contained excitement. "Your latest test results are extraordinary. The biological adaptation between your species has reached levels we never anticipated." "There's more," Nixara said, glancing at Jack. "Should we tell her?" He nodded, understanding her meaning. They'd discovered something remarkable during their latest intimate research sessions. Something that went beyond mere physical compatibility. "The changes aren't just biological anymore," Nixara explained. "They're affecting consciousness itself. My awareness, my emotional capacity, my very way of thinking has evolved. It's as if the human biological compounds have awakened something dormant in Laserian psychology." Dr. Renault's eyes widened. "You mean..." "She means that while humans had to learn to control their primitive nature," Jack interjected, "Laserians had to learn to embrace it. Our compatibility isn't just about biology. It's about finding the perfect balance between instinct and intellect." In their private quarters that evening, they discussed the implications of their discovery. The room's ambient lighting cast a soft glow on Nixara's green skin as she curled against Jack's chest, her body temperature perfectly matched to his. "Do you remember how angry I was?" she asked, tracing the muscles of his arm. "When you first suggested using your biological fluid to neutralize the venom?" "Angry doesn't begin to cover it," he chuckled. "I thought you were going to kill me before the venom had a chance. And now look at us." She pressed closer, her white hair spilling across his chest. "That primitive solution didn't just save my life. It opened my mind, my heart, my entire being to new possibilities. It's as if humans carry within them the key to unlocking the full potential of other species." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Dr. Renaud. The preliminary analysis of their latest data had revealed something unprecedented. The emotional and psychological changes in Laserian test subjects weren't just surface adaptations. They represented a fundamental evolution in consciousness itself. We're seeing increased emotional depth, enhanced intuition, stronger empathy, Dr. Renaud's excited voice explained. "It's as if human biological compatibility acts as a catalyst for psychological evolution, helping other species find their own perfect balance between primal nature and higher consciousness." Nixara smiled at Jack, her golden eyes shining with an emotion that went beyond mere physical attraction. "Your most basic bodily fluid turned out to be the most sophisticated key to unlocking galactic evolution." "Just don't tell the military," he joked. "They're still trying to figure out how to weaponize it." "They never will," and she assured him. "What we have, what we've discovered, it can only come from necessity, trust, and natural attraction. Just like that first moment between us." As they prepared for sleep, their bodies naturally gravitating together in perfect harmony, Jack reflected on how far they'd come. From a desperate act of survival to a revolution in consciousness itself, their story had become legend. And now, with their discovery of how human biological compounds could unlock the deeper potential in other species, they were writing a new chapter in the history of galactic evolution. "Jack," Nixara murmured, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest, "I've been thinking about that day, about how you had no other option but to use your biological fluid." "Having regrets?" he asked, though her warmth against him suggested otherwise. "Quite the opposite." She propped herself up on one elbow, her white hair cascading over her shoulder. "That moment of pure necessity stripped away all our pretenses. Your primitive solution didn't just save my life, it awakened something primal and beautiful in me, in all Lycerians who've undergone the change." Dr. Renault's research had shown that intimate exposure to human biological compounds triggered a cascade of changes in alien species. But unlike the military's failed attempts to weaponize these effects, the natural, consensual sharing led to profound psychological and emotional evolution. "The military never understood," Jack mused, pulling her closer. "They thought they could replicate what happened between us in a lab, but you can't manufacture necessity. You can't simulate having no other option." "That's what makes humans so remarkable," Nexara replied, her golden eyes bright with passion. "Your solutions may seem primitive, but they're pure, natural, perfect in their simplicity." The next morning, they presented their latest findings to the Galactic Senate. The chamber buzzed with excitement as Dr. Renault explained how human biological compatibility was unlocking dormant potential in other species. "What we're witnessing isn't just physical adaptation," she announced. "It's the awakening of suppressed natural instincts, the perfect balance between primal nature and advanced consciousness. And it all began with a desperate act, when a human male had no other option but to use his most basic biological fluid to save his partner's life." The Senate's response was overwhelming. New provisions were added to NARA, protecting not just the physical aspects of human-alien compatibility, but the psychological and emotional elements as well. "We stand at the dawn of a new era," the Senate president declared, "where the primitive and the advanced, the instinctual and the intellectual find perfect harmony through natural human biological compatibility." Later in their research facility, Jack and Nexara welcomed new couples seeking to explore this evolutionary pathway. Each species discovered their own unique awakening through intimate contact with human biological compounds, but all shared the same fundamental truth, that the most basic solutions often led to the most profound transformations. The ancient archives of Centauri Prime stretched endlessly beneath the crystalline surface, housing mysteries that predated known civilization. Jack and Nexara stood before a newly discovered chamber, its walls covered in primitive etchings that seemed to pulse with hidden meaning. "These markings," Nexara breathed, her green fingers tracing the ancient symbols. "They're describing exactly what happened between us. Human biological fluid as a catalyst for evolution, it's been known for millennia." Jack studied the illustrations, his scientific mind wrestling with their implications. "The ancients understood that human biology held the key to unlocking cosmic potential, but they didn't have the means to prove it. Their discovery had led them here, to the oldest known repository of galactic knowledge, while their network of natural evolution centers flourished across known space. Each center provided a sanctuary for species seeking to explore human compatibility in its most natural, intimate form." Dr. Renault's holographic image flickered beside them, her excitement palpable even across light years. "The ancient texts suggest that humans weren't just another evolved species. They were designed to be universal catalysts. Their basic biological compounds contain patterns that mirror the fundamental structure of the universe itself." And Nexara pressed closer to Jack, her body's warmth matching his perfectly. "It makes sense now. Why that desperate moment in the desert led to such profound changes. Your primitive solution wasn't just saving my life. It was awakening something encoded in both our species." The chamber's crystals hummed with energy as they delved deeper into its secrets. Each revelation seemed to validate their experiences, explaining why human biological compatibility had such far-reaching effects on other species. "Look at this section," Jack pointed to a series of intricate patterns. "It describes how the most basic human biological functions can trigger evolutionary leaps in compatible species. Not just physical changes, but fundamental alterations in how they perceive and interact with the universe." "Just like what happened to me," Nexara mused, her golden eyes reflecting the crystal's light. "When you had no choice but to use your biological fluid to neutralize the venom, it didn't just save me. It opened my consciousness to new dimensions of existence. Their latest natural evolution center had opened on a remote world at the galaxy's edge, where the barriers between physical space and cosmic understanding seemed thinnest. Couples from across known space sought them out, drawn by the promise of transformation through intimate human compatibility. Each species experiences it differently, Nixara explained to a gathering of potential participants. But it always begins the same way, with necessity and trust, just like my first experience with human biological compounds. Jack watched her from across the room, admiring how she'd evolved from that angry, wounded warrior in the crystalline desert to this confident guide of evolutionary awakening. Her white hair seemed to capture starlight itself, and her green skin radiated with an inner warmth that matched his own. The ancients knew, he addressed the group, that human biological fluid wasn't just a simple chemical compound. It's a key that unlocks the hidden potential in compatible species. But it can't be forced or synthesized. It has to be shared naturally, intimately. Later, in their private quarters overlooking the galaxy's spiral arm, they discussed the implications of their discoveries in the ancient archives. To think, Nixara murmured, tracing patterns on Jack's chest, that when you used your primitive solution to save me, we were actually fulfilling an ancient cosmic design. Primitive, he caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. I seem to recall you becoming quite appreciative of primitive solutions. Her golden eyes darkened with desire. The ancients understood something we're only beginning to grasp. The most basic primal acts often contain the deepest cosmic truths. Their network of evolution centers had become more than just research facilities. They were sanctuaries where species could explore the full potential of human compatibility in a natural, respectful environment. Each success story added to their understanding of how human biological compounds could unlock universal mysteries. The military still doesn't understand, Jack mused, pulling Nixara closer. They think power comes from weapons and control, but real power comes from surrender, from having no other option but to trust in the most basic solutions. That's what makes humans so remarkable, she replied, her voice soft with admiration. Your species carries within its most primitive biological functions the key to unlocking the universe's greatest mysteries. Dr. Renault's latest research had revealed how human biological compounds contain patterns that mirrored cosmic structures, from the spiral of galaxies to the dance of quantum particles. But these patterns only activated through natural, intimate contact, never through artificial means. We're not just studying biology anymore, Nixara realized, reviewing the latest data. We're discovering how the universe encoded its deepest secrets in the most unexpected place, human biological fluid. Their moment of contemplation was interrupted by an alert from the ancient archives. New chambers had been discovered, promising even more revelations about the cosmic significance of human-alien compatibility. Ready to unlock more universal mysteries? Jack asked, offering his hand. Nixara's smile held all the warmth of their shared evolution. As long as we do it naturally, the way it all began, when you had no other option but to use your most basic solution to save my life. The crystalline chamber beneath the ancient archives pulsed with otherworldly energy as beings of pure light materialized before Jack and Nixara. These were the luminous ones, cosmic entities who had watched humanity's evolution since the dawn of consciousness. We have waited eons for this moment. The entities communicated directly into their minds, for the first pair to discover the truth through the most basic of actions. Nixara's hand found Jack's, their perfectly matched body temperatures creating a harmony that seemed to resonate with the chamber's crystals. You knew? She asked. About human biological compatibility? We designed it, the luminous ones revealed. Humans were created to be universal catalysts, carrying within their most primitive biological functions the key to unlocking cosmic evolution. But it could only be discovered through necessity and natural intimacy. Jack's mind raced back to that desperate moment in the crystalline desert. The serpent that attacked Nixara was placed in your path, the entities confirmed. We needed circumstances that would force the use of human biological fluid in its most basic, natural form. Only through having no other option could the true power be awakened. The chamber filled with images of their journey, from that first desperate act of survival to the establishment of their evolution centers across the galaxy. Each intimate moment between them had been another step toward fulfilling an ancient cosmic design. Your initial encounter was carefully orchestrated, the Luminous Ones explained. The venom, the isolation, the lack of medical supplies, all created to ensure the most primitive solution would be the only option. Nyxara's golden eyes widened with understanding. So when Jack used his biological fluid to neutralize the venom, he was activating a process encoded in the very fabric of the universe. The entities finished. Human biological compounds contain patterns that mirror cosmic structures, but these patterns only activate through natural, intimate contact. But why? Jack asked, his arm instinctively tightening around Nyxara's waist. Why design humans to carry this potential in their most basic biological functions? The Luminous One's light pulsed with ancient wisdom. The universe requires balance between the primitive and the advanced, the physical and the cosmic. Humans, with their unique combination of primal instincts and higher consciousness, were the perfect vessels for this evolutionary catalyst. Nyxara pressed closer to Jack, her green skin glowing in the ethereal light. And my initial fury at his primitive solution was necessary, the entities explained. The transformation had to begin with resistance, then acceptance, then desire. Your journey from anger to love mirrors the cosmic dance of evolution itself. The chamber's crystals projected images of their evolution centers, showing how each intimate human-alien pairing sparked new levels of consciousness and understanding. What had begun with Jack's desperate act had blossomed into a galaxy-wide awakening. Your network of sanctuaries, the Luminous Ones observed, perfectly fulfills our design. Natural, intimate contact with human biological compounds unlocks the dormant potential we encoded in compatible species. Later, in their private quarters aboard their research vessel, Jack and Nyxara absorbed the implications of their discovery. The room's viewport offered a spectacular view of the galaxy's spiral arm, now dotted with their evolution centers. To think, Nyxara mused, her white hair spilling across Jack's chest, that your primitive emergency solution was actually part of an ancient cosmic plan. Primitive? He smiled, running his fingers along her arm, where the serpent's venom had once threatened her life. I seem to recall it leading to some rather sophisticated outcomes. Her golden eyes sparkled with desire and deep affection. The most sophisticated of all. Who would have thought that having no other option but to use your biological fluid would lead to this? To us? To a whole new understanding of the universe? The Luminous Ones had granted them one final gift, the knowledge that their bond was eternal, written into the very fabric of space-time. Their initial desperate encounter had been more than just a survival situation. It had been the first step in awakening humanity's true purpose as universal catalysts. We should return to the centers, Jack suggested, though he made no move to leave their intimate embrace. There are still so many species seeking to explore human compatibility. Always thinking of others, Nyxara teased, tracing patterns on his skin. That's what makes humans so remarkable. Even your most basic biological functions serve a higher purpose. Their network of evolution centers continued to flourish, each one a testament to how the most primitive solutions could lead to the most profound transformations. Couples from across the galaxy sought them out, drawn by the promise of natural evolution through intimate human compatibility. The military had finally abandoned their attempts to weaponize human biological compounds, accepting that true power came from surrender to natural processes. The conservative elements who had once opposed their research now celebrated humanity's role as universal catalysts. You know what I think, Nyxara said, as they prepared to welcome new couples to their latest center. That moment in the desert, when you had no other option but to use your biological fluid to save me. It wasn't just the beginning of our story, it was the beginning of a whole new chapter in universal evolution. Jack pulled her close, marveling at how perfectly their temperatures matched, how completely their bodies and souls had harmonized. And to think it all started because I had to use the most primitive solution possible. The perfect solution, she corrected him, her golden eyes full of love and cosmic understanding. Just as the Luminous Ones designed it to be. Their legacy would echo through the ages, the human male and his alien partner who discovered that the most basic biological functions could unlock the universe's greatest mysteries. Their story would be told in the ancient archives, a testament to how having no other option but to use the most primitive solution could lead to the most profound cosmic evolution. And so, what began with a desperate act in a crystalline desert became a revolution in consciousness, a transformation in understanding, and a love story written in the stars themselves. No. Jack and Nixara had found their destiny in the most unexpected way, proving that sometimes the most primitive solutions contain the most sophisticated answers of all.